In Athens, the price of a woman's body was 2 barley loaves, less than a jug of sour wine. Not a myth, but an entry in the city's ledgers. Freedom was a temple for men and a cage for the women beneath it. Who paid for the Parthenon's perfection? The answer lies not in marble, but in flesh, burned, branded, and broken. Chronicles stay silent. The bones in the drains do not. If you value truth, subscribe. When the ledger closes, pain still speaks. In the backstreets near the agora, under the smell of roasted grain and wine, stood the Pornea state-licensed brothels. A night with a girl cost 2 barley loaves. The same city that taught the world democracy had turned the bodies of its most voiceless into its most reliable revenue. Historians record that some girls serviced 6 to 10 men a day until infection, pregnancy, or collapse made them unfit for work. When that happened, they were replaced. A doctor's visit cost more than a new slave. Athens called itself the mother of philosophy. But philosophy requires silence, and that silence was bought with the screams of women in the night. Every polished column, every lyric ode, every marble statue was paid for in flesh. The question is not whether Athens was cruel. The question is how cruelty became beautiful. Athens called it order, but behind that word lay a system so precise, so administrative, that it turned violation into infrastructure. The brothel wasn't a shadow of the city, it was one of its pillars. When the statesman Solon reformed Athens in the 6th century BCE, his laws are said to have founded state-regulated brothels to keep men from harming respectable women, the texts claim. Historians debate the legend, but the fiscal records don't. Pimping, known as porneon tax, was a recognized civic contribution. The revenue didn't disappear into private pockets. It flowed into the same treasury that funded the temples of the gods and the marble steps of the Acropolis. The city had found a way to convert humiliation into public architecture. Each brothel was catalogued and inspected, its prices standardized like grain or olive oil. Every woman inside bore an identifying mark, a brand on her thigh or hip, linking her not only to her owner, but indirectly to the state. Her suffering was taxable, her body a civic resource. The city counted her not as shame, but as income. Inscriptions recovered near Piraeus, record fees paid to the goddess Aphrodite by the keepers of houses. The language is careful sacred offering, not blood money. The brothel had been absorbed into religion, its transactions rebranded as worship. Men paid coin, women paid flesh, and the gods received their share. Economists of antiquity now estimate that state prostitution brought thousands of drachmas into Athens annually, enough to finance the repair of city walls or fund several triremes. The currency of the empire, stamped with Athena's owl, may well have been minted from the profits of the porneia. But this system wasn't simply tolerated, it was justified. Philosophers argued that controlled vice preserved social order. Better, they said, to contain male lust within the brothel than risk polluting wives and virgins. In this moral calculus, the suffering of slaves became the mechanism of virtue for others. Athens had engineered an ethical paradox, enslaved pain as civic stability. Inside the porneia, that philosophy took on the texture of hell. The rooms were low and airless, the floors packed with straw and filth. Curtains divided cubicles, but offered no privacy, only thin fabric to muffle the sounds of endurance. The women inside were assets under contract. When one was sick, her absence was logged as a fiscal loss. When she died, her replacement was filed as acquisition. Account books discovered on Ostraka broken pottery used as writing tablets record chilling entries. 1 Nubian scarred, 8 obols. 1 Thracian girl unbroken, 12 obols. Each phrase is an epitaph disguised as bookkeeping. The system extended outward. Artisans made the locks for the doors, blacksmiths forged the branding irons, physicians attended births and abortions, merchants sold oil for the lamps that illuminated the acts. Every layer of the city, knowingly or not, profited from its commerce in flesh. The economy of suffering was not peripheral, it was civic participation. And yet the moral brilliance of the scheme was its invisibility. The men who debated ethics in the agora could dine at the same establishments that sold despair as service and still call themselves civilized. Athens did not hide its brothels, it integrated them. Public sin became public order. One surviving law from the orator Demosthenes declares, "A man may not marry a prostitute, yet may use her freely, for the city does not forbid what it profits from." That sentence distills the machinery of hypocrisy, the distinction between purity as symbol and corruption as necessity. The city pretended to separate them, but economically they were married. By the late 5th century BCE, the porneia had become an industry. Slaves were imported from Thrace, Asia Minor, Egypt, women of every color, accent, and age. Athens' cosmopolitan pride masked a marketplace of anguish. Each foreign accent in the brothel was proof of conquest. The empire didn't just expand through war, it expanded through procurement. And still, this system was praised as pragmatic, even moral. Because Athens' genius was not its cruelty, it was its ability to rationalize cruelty as reason, to transform the violation of bodies into the discipline of the polis. Athenian democracy functioned because someone had to absorb what the system denied: its rage, its appetite, its contradictions. The brothel was not an aberration. It was the safety valve of philosophy. The Parthenon rose pristine and white, while beneath it, the city's darker temples pulsed brick sweat and blood. Athens had found a perfect equilibrium. Men debated virtue under daylight, and women paid for it after dark. If commerce could sanctify cruelty, what would happen when that cruelty itself became spectacle? When pain was not just profit, but entertainment. The brothel was never hidden in Athens, it was performed. Its walls were not meant to conceal sin, but to choreograph it. In a city that worshipped theatre, cruelty itself became a stage production. Every new slave entered this theatre the same way through ritualized pain. When a girl was purchased, her initiation was public, an event for regular clients and new patrons alike. She would be stripped, her body inspected as property, and then raped while others looked on. The act was not spontaneous, it was policy. The goal was to break resistance, to erase the boundary between pain and obedience. In that moment, a child became merchandise. Archaeologists have found graffiti from Athenian brothel walls, etched by laughing patrons, crude stick figures, prices jokes about training new girls. Some inscriptions even used the same verbs found in plays performed at the Dionysian festivals, proof that the languages of theatre and torture were interchangeable. In Athens, violence was not a breakdown of civilization, it was its texture. The act of domination repeated nightly became an art form. The city consumed without guilt. A good client was not just one who paid, but one who performed cruelty well, who elicited the right reactions. The more a woman screamed, the more the men laughed. Athenian rhetoric justified this degradation as a kind of education. The philosopher Xenophon wrote that self-control separated free men from slaves. Yet, in practice, the city built an economy that rewarded the opposite indulgence at the expense of others' pain. The contradiction was not hidden. It was flaunted. Athens built its moral identity atop the spectacle of its own depravity. Virginity in this economy was premium stock. A fresh girl could sell for 10 times the price of a seasoned one. Her first assault fetched the highest bids conducted a ceremony, a grotesque parody of marriage. Witnesses toasted the act as if celebrating a civic virtue. Some records even describe wagers on how long she would resist before breaking. Imagine the courtyard torchlight trembling against the stone wine, sloshing in clay cups, men jeering while a small figure gasps on the ground. Her body still growing is split open before the crowd. The laughter echoes into the night, mingling with the hymns from the nearby temple. This was Athens' truest theatre. And as the empire's wealth grew, so did the hunger for novelty. Brothel owners staged contests: who could dominate a resisting girl fastest, who could leave a mark without drawing blood. These games blurred into the city's festivals, where pain and performance shared the same applause. Even art joined the complicity. Vase paintings from the 5th century depict scenes of assault. As decorative motifs, women pinned under men, their limbs stylized into elegance. The figures are painted with the same care given to depictions of gods. Beauty, violence, and commerce fused into one grammar. The Greeks called it kalos kagathos, the noble and the good. But the word beauty here was a kind of anesthesia, a way to make suffering look divine. The brutality of the porneia extended beyond its walls. On festival nights, the city itself became an open brothel. During Dionysian celebrations, prostitutes were offered to crowds for free, symbolizing abundance and fertility.